This is Steve Erickson. Okay. Steve Erickson with Dot Knightly. You have a blog called The Unhappy Granny, which I can link to. But why don't you tell me a little bit about that and why you blog?
Okay, it's the Unhappy Granny Grandparents blog, and I started blogging after DCYF in Nashua took two of my grandchildren away. My granddaughter, Isabella, her mother had been in a pregnant women's methadone program. And this is why I started the blog, because we were treated so unfairly. And I wanted everybody to know just exactly what they do. Well, my daughter was in the methadone program, and when she had her baby, the baby was placenta previa, and they gave my daughter a morphine IV for 19 and a half hours in labor. The day before the baby was supposed to be discharged from the hospital, and that night, the director from the methadone program told the social worker that the baby was withdrawing from heroin.
Yes.
They had already signed off on the baby's discharge at the hospital. The nurses all said there was nothing wrong with the baby. She was fine. They stuck the baby in NICU the night before she was to be discharged at 10 o'clock. They put her in NICU. They didn't put her on anything at the time. They were just watching her. The same day, my daughter and the baby's paternal aunt went to see the baby in NICU at Southern New Hampshire Medical Center, and the nurse handed my daughter the wrong baby with no bracelets on, no ID bracelets, and no the security alarm.
Yes.
And my daughter flipped out and said, "This isn't my baby. I want my baby." They accused her of hallucinating. They had handed her a coke-addicted baby. After she flipped out on them and they started yelling at her, they went back and they got my daughter's baby, Isabella, with no bracelets on and no security alarm. And when my daughter asked why she didn't have them on, because she did at birth, they said because in case they had to switch them, had to bring them to another floor, they took them off, which shouldn't be done anyway. Well, right after that happened, the social worker from the hospital called DCYF and reported drugs in the baby's system. The toxicology reports hadn't even come back. They came back 4 days later. DCYF went to see my daughter and the baby. They didn't know my daughter was given morphine in labor. They just accused her of doing drugs the day before. So they took her baby on October 3rd of 2005 and placed her in foster care. When we went for the preliminary hearing, the DCYF worker had told me that we weren't going to get the baby because there were charges against my son-in-law, my estranged son-in-law, which there weren't. I told her it would be proven in court. It's so confusing. My older daughter was staying with us with her two kids, and an ex-friend called in a false report against her saying that her husband was molesting the kids. We took the kids to the hospital right away. There was nothing wrong with them. This happened on September 14th of 2005. Isabella was born on August 31st of 2005. So right away, DCYF filed the petition against my daughter because my daughter and her kids were staying with us. Are you confused yet?
No, I'm getting it. I know that the state does what they can to take away kids, right, legitimately or not, because they get federal tax dollars, and it's basically you have more state employees, you have more federal employees. They keep spending more of our tax dollars, taking more of our freedoms, just doing whatever they want, and if you complain about it, they go after you. And
definitely. All their Title IV funding has to cease. I've been reporting it to the Inspector General. I've been reporting it everywhere. It's all fraudulent, and they place the kids in foster care because they get the money. They don't place with relatives, not in Nashua. They don't do it. So when we went to court and she told us, "Oh, there's sexual molestation going on in your house. You're not getting your grandchildren." your granddaughter. And I said, no, there isn't. It'll be proven in court. There was no investigation or anything because we proved it. We took the kids to the hospital right away. I just recently came across one of the papers in the file which showed that the DCYF lawyer, the report that came in, she said it happened in our home. It said no such thing. I posted the report on my blog. It said no such thing. They still refuse to let us have my granddaughter. When my daughter went for her TPR hearing, because everybody loses at TPR, I was told by a caseworker.
What is TPR?
Terminating parental rights.
Uh-huh.
She told I and my husband that whenever a child is taken in Nashua, they're not returned. Every parent loses their parental rights. They never reverse. Supreme Court never reverses the parental rights terminations. I said to her, how can DCYF do all this? And she said to us, because our government gave them the power, they can do whatever they want. They're not held accountable to anybody. They told us they have the power of God. They walk on water. Okay?
Yes.
This I intend to stop. You know, if it's just me, myself, in Nashua, I'm just going to keep on fighting them. I had gone on to different websites where they had statistics for all the different states, and New Hampshire wasn't on any of them. It was like they were, this goody-two-shoes state, you know, that it didn't happen here. So I started notifying all of them, why isn't New Hampshire here? New Hampshire is just as bad as the rest, if not worse. You know, so I put them right out there. I've written letters to Maggie Bishop, who she's a very crude woman, and she's the highest up director at DCYF in Concord. My grandson and his sister were taken from the other daughter that was staying here after my daughter went to the hospital with her daughter and was accused of being intoxicated at the hospital. So she was arrested, and I took the kids home, and we couldn't get her file. See, what the hospital had done in the health center where my daughter had prenatal care, the other daughter, they held back records. They said they couldn't find them for 6 months. Okay? So by the time they were found, they wouldn't let us bring evidence into court. The judge said bring it in, but then he wouldn't look at it and he wouldn't admit it. Evidence proving innocence is not allowed in Nashua family courts. What?
She's proven innocent because the test, she had no alcohol.
My daughter,
medication.
Right, my daughter, that the two kids were taken, 6 months later, we found the reports from the hospital. My daughter, the night she had been arrested, they brought her back to the hospital because it was like they couldn't wake her up. There was something wrong. They did blood tests on her that night. There was no alcohol in her system, period. My daughter, the case was dropped in criminal court for child endangerment, and the caseworker and the castle worker both vowed to make sure my daughter's kids would never be returned, even though she was innocent. Judge LaFrancois, he wouldn't just drop the charges. He wouldn't admit the evidence. Judge Leary and Judge Sandberger wouldn't admit the evidence on my other daughter that proved her innocence. The caseworker at the parental rights termination admitted she didn't know there was morphine that she didn't know my daughter was given a morphine IV in labor. When a baby is placenta previa, that baby is supposed to be taken by C-section. My daughter struggled for 19 and a half hours to push a baby through what it shouldn't have happened. The other kids, we kept fighting for my grandson. That's Austin. If you look on the website, he's all drugged up on Adderall, which my daughter never signed for. He sent us that picture himself. So there's my permission to put it up. I had somebody else putting up the picture, but the other little boys' faces were shown, and his site was shut down by Nashua DCYF for putting that picture up.
Everything's shut down because it's all true.
Mine's not shut down because it's all true. I have everything. Every single bit of proof I have. If I've said it on there, I have the proof.
Yeah.
When the two kids were placed with us, my older daughter's two kids, my younger daughter, who had lost her daughter, was arrested for charges from after the baby was born, right after they took her baby. and it had to do with drugs and her boyfriend, giving him a ride. So when we had the kids, they came back and they took, I went down to get the court orders to say that we had the kids in our custody while my daughter was in jail. But while my daughter was in jail, we received a letter from her doctor saying that she needed medical attention right away, that she could go into a coma and die. And she was diagnosed with Sheehan syndrome. So we bailed her out, and when she came back, they told us, DCYF told us they didn't want her around the two kids.
Was what she had contagious? Did she have something?
No, because she had an open case with DCYF, even though Judge Leary had already said she can be around the kids as long as she doesn't babysit them. So they've made up so many different stories. They've said that they took the kids away because she was doing drugs in my house, which she wasn't. She was on a methadone program, and she was randomly drug tested by Chris Gino constantly. There was no other drugs in her system. Then they said because my daughter was living here, she wasn't to be around the kids. There was all kinds of different stories that they gave us. When they came here, they took the kids. 4 police came, took my grandson, 6 years old, out the door, dragged him out the door, screaming and crying down the street. All the neighbors watched. They had no court order, and they had no warrant. They dragged him so bad that the sneakers that he had on were dug into the back of his heels, covered in blood. And that's what they did to him.
Well, the state, they're notorious for harming children, and even if a family is not the best, I'm not saying, your daughter, you're saying, has a drug problem, but kids placed in state care often are treated even worse than in what's considered an abusive home. And
yes, definitely. And my granddaughter, the other granddaughter, told her father that she was being sexually molested at the group home she was at, and he asked me what to do. And I told him, you're going to have to report it to somebody, but he waited until he got full custody of her, and he never reported it.
By nuns.
By nuns.
By nuns.
By nuns. This is what his daughter told him. And I'm sure he's going to deny it right now, because my daughter and him are still fighting over the custody of his daughter. But when they took my grandson and his sister, we kept fighting and fighting. We finally got to visit him, and then the visit stopped when the parent aide brought up my daughter's name. And then Nicholas Toompas finally let us have a home study, which was only partially done, but it took 8 months. And when I called Maggie Bishop, she said to me, you chose your daughter over your grandchildren. I said, my daughter needed medical attention or she would have died. She said to me, well, why isn't she dead? And she says, if my daughter were in jail and were sick, I would just leave her there. I would leave her there to die. And I said, oh, really? And I couldn't believe it. I said, you're a crude woman, period. Yeah, we have clean criminal records, everything. We've never been in trouble. I've never been a fighter until they've done this. Until they took my grandchildren. I have to fight back. They choose younger people because I don't know, I guess they feel they just don't have it in them to fight them. And this is a fight I'm never going to give up. They're going to go down.
My problem is with the court system, with judges. I mean, judges.
Mine too. They don't. The judges, the lawyers, they gave them court-appointed lawyers who would do nothing. The lawyer that my daughter had was a real estate lawyer, okay? He wouldn't file any motions. He kept calling my daughter a junkie. He wouldn't give her records. He said the state didn't pay him enough. The state pays him $60 an hour, and 12 of it goes to him, and the rest goes to his office. He has more important clients than her, and he didn't fight because the court is his boss. And the court wouldn't let us fire him. She tried 3 times. They said, the judge says he's doing a fine job, and my daughter said, yeah, for DCYF he is. None of us were allowed in the courtroom. The judges do everything DCYF tells them. They're their court puppets, just like CASA are puppets of the court, who They are not independent of themselves. They follow along with everything DCYF tells you.
They get no job.
No, they won't get another job. Then when we went for the TPR, we clearly won. And the lawyer kept telling me, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter what you do, what you prove, you're going to lose. And he kept saying that. And I worked in his office for 50, 60 hours, going through every single paper of my daughter's file. And I pulled out all the evidence, all the proof. And when we went to court, she clearly won. Judge Raymond Cloutier, who retired, he's the one that's suing the state of New Hampshire now for a bigger pension. He wrote the opposite of all the testimony and all the proof that came out at the TPR. And the Supreme Court judges said he made no errors. And Casa wouldn't even speak up. She said to the judge, everyone already has my reports. I'm not going to get on the stand. And the judge yelled at her, I didn't get your report. Where's my report? And, that was taken out of the transcript, of course.
Of course. That's why they need cameras in the courtrooms, because judges are liars, big liars. Yep. They rig cases. I hate to use the word scumbags. They're just a bunch of scumbags.
That's what I call them all, scumbags, period. Satan's spawn.
Yeah.
That's how it is. People need to know. There is so much bias in the family court. Everybody gets screwed over, period. Everyone gets screwed over. And I tried to get lawyers to take the slander lawsuit. I tried to get lawyers to take the lawsuit so I could fight DCYF. And I was told by someone who's a high up now in the state, he told me, you're not going to get any lawyers to go after DCYF in the state of New Hampshire because 2 have already been disbarred. So I can't get anybody to go after them. Anything I've done, I've filed on my own for the last 6 years. And, I know more about the law than a lot of the lawyers know now because I've been doing it all myself.
Well, it doesn't, the law doesn't matter in the courts, which is sickening. They decide the cases before they're even held. They know what the outcomes are, and it's just a big show.
Definitely. They told my daughter when I said something about if her rights are terminated, they said, no, when her rights are terminated. I said, what do you mean when her rights are terminated? What is this TPR for? Is it already set in stone? And she didn't answer me. And both fathers, the father's rights weren't even terminated. They chose a fictitious guy for Isabella's father, okay? And when he came forward, when he found out what was going on, they denied him paternity testing. They denied him to challenge the adoption twice. My son Austin's father, he was deported to Honduras. They had his address. They had his social security number. They had his phone number, everything. Yet they looked for him. They put an ad in a paper in Mexico. Why would you look for a guy in Mexico that's in Honduras, okay? It's unbelievable. And when we told DCYF, you have the wrong guy. This guy is 11 years younger than Austin's father. She said, oh, it doesn't matter, no big deal. Doesn't matter. I said, it most certainly does matter. So neither kid's rights were legally terminated, and neither kid was legally adopted, period.
Well, the states get federal tax dollars to kidnap children.
Yes, they do. Every child they steal, they get more money from the federal government. It's ridiculous. They have no incentive to keep a child in the home. There is no family preservation. They're paid to take kids. So why would they leave the kids in the home when they lose money?
Yeah, they want co-workers to get 6 figures. They want to do as little as possible. There's incentives to be as cruel and as inhumane as is possible, and that's what we get.
And they definitely are inhumane and cruel, and like you said, they are the scum of the earth, period.
What I think would solve the problem would be grand juries. If you get these judges...
I tried getting a hold of them here, and we cannot get into a grand jury in New Hampshire. We can't get into one. I guess it's different people all the time.
We wouldn't be in the banking situation. The economy wouldn't be crashing. All these criminals that are bribing officials, all these judges that owe favors to all these big money, organized crime, international kidnappers, all these where prisons are going to be corporate. Judges
Right.
profit by sending people to prison. If they aren't given money directly, they're told about investments. In Connecticut, judges invest in bonds. They're high yield bonds. Then it's inside information. So they make all this
Right.
money, and basically they all have mutually assured destruction, where they all know something about each other, so nobody can tell on each other. So it's a big organized crime organization. If we had citizens that were on grand juries for a limited amount of time, say you had 9 people as part of a grand jury, no judge at all, and they know that families are being harmed, they know that they have to pay for this abuse, so a grand jury is not going to harm families, is not going to rip the community off, because they have to go back and back into their lives of working and paying taxes and providing for the system, not just taking from it, which these criminals in government, the judges, the courts, the lawyers, lawyers are mostly legislators, and they're basically scumbags. They just take whatever they can. They're for lawyers, they're for the courts, they're for judges, and they just keep ripping us off.
Right, and the Title IV funding, they're all getting paid out of it, the judges, the marital masters, the lawyers. But I want to put this in. The Republican legislature in New Hampshire, okay, they are fighting for families. They are. Bill O'Brien has let us bring our petitions to the Redress Grievance Committee, which was stopped a long time ago by the Democrats. That's part of the New Hampshire Constitution, okay, and they're fighting for us. Any bill that has ever been put in while the Democrats had the majority was shot down by the Democrats, okay? The Republicans would put in bills for families. The Democrats shot them down. Not one Democrat has sponsored a petition with the Redress Grievance Committee. Not one. We need open courts, period, throughout the whole country. We need jury trials for parents. I've had caseworkers come up to me and their lawyers and tell me the judges have no say. They do everything we tell them to do. And it's true, they do. They do everything they're told by DCYF. I don't know if you've seen on my blog either, there's a book that was put out quite some time ago, and it's the DCYF Court and Legal Handbook for New Hampshire. And from what I understand by Paula Worm's website, is that they're not supposed to use it anymore. But I have the book, I have it on my website, and it tells how the caseworkers and the supervisors are supposed to get to know the judge first. They talk with the judges in their chambers, they go out to lunch, and they do everything they can just to make sure the child is taken away and that the parent has no say. And the parents have no rights. They have no rights at all. None. Not when it comes to the courts. But the Title IV funding has to cease also. And there's a new bill that the legislature has up right now. It's called CAC R26 in New Hampshire. And everybody needs to get their legislator to support it. What the bill is, in 73A of the Constitution, the bill was this 73A was written up in 1978, and the legislature voted on it. They passed it. After they passed it, I guess it was the Supreme Court judges stuck this other sentence in the bottom, which isn't supposed to be there, and they're trying to repeal that bill now. So it needs to be supported. CACR 26, it's going to take it out. This is the reason why we can't present evidence in family court, and why family courts can do whatever they want to do.
Well, the system rigs itself. They put more people in. They're not accountable, and the judicial branch and judges and lawyers in the system, if they're making money from the system, shouldn't be writing the rules, because they'll write rules where they make the most amount of money, do the least amount of work, and cause the most amount of damage, and that's what they're doing.
Right. Right. Family court doesn't have to follow the same rules as the other courts, and it's not right. Convicted criminals have more rights than parents have. Okay? A convicted criminal, new evidence can come up years later, and they're exonerated and get out of jail. What do families have? They have 30 days to file an appeal, a de novo appeal, and if their lawyer won't file it, it goes against them at the petition, at the termination of parental rights termination hearing. It goes against them because their lawyer wouldn't file. And the Attorney Discipline Office is no better. We filed complaints against both lawyers, the DCYF lawyer and my daughter's lawyer. They said they did nothing wrong. Nothing.
Well, the criminal courts, the small claim courts, if you go through the courts and you're known as a person, say you're on a list, you will never get any justice. Small claims, civilly, criminal court, they will throw the book at people who stand up to the system, period.
Yes, definitely.
And if you go through the criminal system, walking across the street, jaywalking, could end up, being a jail sentence. It's
true.
I mean,
true.
It's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I've been fighting them, but they can't come back at me because I have all the proof. I have everything. I mean, the Redress Grievance Committee tried to get Maggie Bishop to come in and answer questions that I gave them. It was like on their protocols and practices. She refused to go in. She wouldn't go in and answer the questions, period. She's afraid. Like I told Paul Ingwertson of the Redress Grievance Committee, she won't come in and answer the questions because she's going to answer them the way they're supposed to be done, and you have the proof in front of you to show you what they did do, which was wrong. Because anything I gave them, I had the proof to back me up.
Well, you have a union for government workers, whether the police, they're in the court system, whether they're DCYS. I mean, I know it's DCF from Connecticut, but they all have union affiliation, or if they don't, they still interact with people that do. And these people all make money. Anybody that makes waves, they can be physically threatened, where they have to worry about their property, their safety, their job, their future.
Right.
Every cruel, organized crime type of tool to...
Right. Well, look what happened to Nancy Schaefer and her husband. That was not suicide, There's no way.
The way he says is, how can you beat them?
Yeah, no. Really, how do you beat them? We just have to all get together. We have to all get together and fight. I did it on my own for years, and I finally started meeting up with other people that were fighting also. I used to picket them down in front of their building, and I got one other family to picket with me. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was so afraid. I'm not afraid of them. They know I'm not. I have everything, and I'm presenting it. I've been putting it up on my blog. I want people to know what's really happening. Families in America have no rights. They're taking all of our rights away. These are our children, It should be family take care of family, not the government pull you apart. I mean, there is no family preservation whatsoever. And they're all making money off it. I know the DCYF, they have their own unions also, and they shuffle them around from here to there. Well, I even tried to get a foster care license, and Tracy Gubbins, the supervisor in Nashua, wouldn't let me because I was uncooperative. Would you be cooperative if they lied about you? I don't think so. I've been fighting ever since.
Yeah, the Democrats or the Republicans, I think they're all a bunch of lying scumbags if they're affiliated with lawyers or judges. So I have problems with the party system. They don't want us to get together. As a community, we should be able to get together at non-corporate chain restaurants. We should be able to get together at churches.
Right.
All of our meetings are infiltrated. We should pass more money amongst ourselves. We should invest, even if it's $10 at a time, invest in community theater. If somebody's willing to fight, like you, like me, people should help us out to fight for them, and we should get together for fundraising events. Say there's community theater. People should get together to fight what is. It's not a government of the people. It's we're basically just crops that they grow and they yield. They cut us down and they sell us to whoever internationally. We're slaves. Right. And if government is if we're paying for it, we're the boss, and we should take control.
Right.
We should not.
I know a lot of people are against the Republicans too, but they are the only ones that have helped us in New Hampshire. The only ones. Any Democrat won't do anything. They won't do a thing. They all stick with DCYF. I don't understand why, but I found quite a few of the Republicans are willing to help us, and they're pushing for families. But the other thing, I don't know. You must know there was a nationwide protest, and I think it was August 12th of 2011, and it was at every courthouse in each state. Well, I sponsored the one for Nashua. Do you know how many people came to picket with me? And I spread the news everywhere. None. Not one person showed up in Nashua because they were threatened by DCYF.
Yeah, if you're going to lose your kids.
Right.
Yeah, I know from my own experiences that if you upset one official, let's just say if a police officer lives at home with his mother, no personality, has fat in his name, his nickname, wants a guy's wife. He can follow the guy around. He can get into his email. He can listen to phone calls. He can pull him over. And in the case of Stafford Springs, this fat police officer was throwing me up against my house, telling me I didn't deserve my wife. And that may have been where the problem started for me. These people are tyrants. They can take whatever they want from you. If they want, if you have a car that a cop wants, he can just plant drugs on you. And then with what is that, dare? They can end up driving your car. They can just take your car.
Right.
So
that's the problem. Too much government. I mean, those people are supposed to be working for us. It's not supposed to be we're working for them, period. It's not supposed to be that way. I mean, we put them into office, and they're there to do for us. And they do for themselves, I know. Many of them do for themselves, and that's how it works. It's all about money. All about money. Greed.
You should be able to have a grand jury system that's got term limits. Say a DCF worker is misbehaving. Say a DCF worker rapes somebody, or man or woman, or does something wrong, lies, steals. That person's not prosecuted because they're part of the system. A grand jury would not be part of the system, could hear evidence and could see that an independent investigation is done on this person. This person is prosecuted, loses their job, and then something happens. People have to be civilly and criminally liable, otherwise they do what they want. That's why we have tyrants.
Right. And I've even filed complaints with the Attorney General's office. And I was told, you can't file complaints about DCYF here. They work for us. And then my daughter received letters in the mail because the Attorney General's office, as far as I'm concerned, they're the head of the Consumer Protection Agency. So we filed complaints against Southern New Hampshire Medical Center, the Nashua Area Health Center, and DCYF. And the AG's office said they had no jurisdiction over any of them.
Well, the Attorney General of a state, from what I understand, they're in charge of defending the state against lawsuits. So if you go to complain to them, that's conflict of interest.
But what happened to the hospital and the health center? Are they giving them money too? I'm sure there's a big kickback. I mean, that hospital really grew huge. For all the kids that go into that hospital and their parents are reported to DCYF and they're taken, it's not just my 2 grandchildren, it's many people's kids. They go into that hospital and they get reported to DCYF. There have to be kickbacks. And as far as the Nashua Area Health Center is concerned, there's kickbacks there too. It's the whole thing is all about money, period.
Well, if you had a doctor's office that was out of a house, and it's a family doctor, which virtually doesn't exist anymore, these people are part of the community. They owe the community. They wouldn't be just treating people, grinding them up for money. Right, like it used to be. A real doctor, even if you didn't have the money, he'd come to the house and take care of you. It wasn't money. That isn't all there is. They're making any type of small business, individual, self-employed, illegal in the United States. It's the international corporations and banks they just keep growing bigger, taking more power. And look at the public transportation system. Look at everything. All our money is being sucked away and put somewhere else, and we're told to shut up and like it. And people are fed up nationwide.
Right.
We
There's
don't
no
need
need of the government being this big. Ron Paul has the right idea.
I agree.
You know, that there's no need of it. That's where all the money's going, to pay all these off. And the judges in New Hampshire, they don't get elected. The governor chooses the judges. We need elections of judges, and we need term limits. And none of this big pensions of $150,000 a year for these judges that retired. You know, our money is being spent so stupidly.
Well, if a governor's raping 3-year-olds in his office and he appoints judges and all this money's going everywhere else, are these judges going to sit over the governor in a court case if they already have stuff on them and they've basically sold their souls to be judges? So we need independent courts that are a people's court, grand juries.
Definitely. Yes, we do. We do.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the judges need to be elected. There was one judge, I'm not sure if it was Broderick, said if he hadn't been in there so long, he kind of grew accustomed. You know what I mean? And he got comfortable in it. And if he hadn't been there so long, he may not have ruled on things that he did rule on the way he did. Okay? So term limits is the way to go. And elections. All these judges are being paid by the state, and they're all in with Governor Lynch.
And by the law, they go by the law, not making up.
Really? And you got to go by the law. You can't make up as you go.
Law.
And I think judges, prosecutors, any elected official, even if the trash collector is somebody that's hired by the city, the people should have the ability to fire people that they're paying. You should be able to bring a petition to neighbors, have say it's a community of 10,000. Maybe you need 500 signatures or 100 signatures or 50 signatures to, just to bring it to a hearing where it's not a judge that's gonna, it's already corrupt, but in front of a grand jury that decides, okay, you're fired. Like Obama, all the lying and all the corporate people he put in. It's like, you lying scumbag, go in front of the grand jury, you're fired.
Right.
So all the way from the U.S. president on down to the trash collector or part-time cop or fireman, if you're not doing your job, you should get fired, period.
Right. Just like DCYF, they get moved from place to place when they screw up. When they took my granddaughter, Isabella, and I went in and I brought all the proof in to the National DCYF office because there was a new manager there, Geraldo. I gave it all to him. He was a nice guy. He said to me, I'll make sure this is not going to happen again. Well, it happened again. And Tracy Gubbins was trying to get him to watch her back, and she would watch his. Well, he got moved after that. Every caseworker that we got along with, that told us what was really going on, is not there anymore. They were gone. So what does that tell you? If they open their mouths, they're gone. But the unions protect the ones that commit fraud, commit perjury, the corrupt workers. They protect them and they just move them around. We do need independent contractors and all that, but we need they need to be disbanded. Period. DCYF everywhere. There has to be a better way.
Well, a friend of mine worried he'd be killed because in Connecticut, the DCF workers were buying drugs from street dealers, getting in disputes over money or drugs, and they're having fights with their drug dealers. And the Hartford Police Department, they basically are if they're organized crime drug dealers, you leave them alone. And DCF workers, they need to keep committing crimes. That way, the state has something on them. So if they don't do what the state wants, collecting whatever money and abusing people, then they prosecute the DCF workers for dealing drugs, using drugs, driving drunk, just basically being criminal scumbags, which a lot of them are because they don't know how to behave. They get sociopaths that basically have personality disorders where they can be used by the state to abuse.
Right. And as long as they can lie, they're going to stay being a caseworker. You know, I mean, all the kids in foster care and that are adopted and that are harmed, there's more harm comes to them, and statistics show it. More kids in foster care and adoptions are harmed and killed than in their own homes.
Well, there are good people that are involved in any occupation, but anybody that has a conscience, that's a decent person, they have to live in fear. If I tell on, so-and-so at work, I'll lose my marriage, I'll lose my kids, I'll lose my house, and my entire life will be ruined. And it's terrorism. It's state-sponsored terrorism.
It is, definitely. Even when you first go to court, you know, they threaten the girls into, or anybody, they threaten them into signing a case plan. They told them if they don't sign it, they're never going to get their kids back. They're never going to see their kids again because they don't have the federal funding. My youngest daughter, there's the Title IVA funding. The caseworker wanted her to sign an application which said that she was either eligible for TANF, was going to get TANF, or she was on TANF. And she wanted my daughter to sign it. My daughter wasn't eligible for it.
What is TANF?
And the caseworker signed it because she wouldn't.
What is TANF?
TANF it's like welfare for mothers with kids. And my daughter wouldn't sign it because we were financially able to take care of her and her daughter. And she wouldn't sign it. And that was the only way they got funding. The caseworker signed it herself because my daughter refused.
That's illegal.
It's all fraud. It is illegal.
So they steal kids.
It's all illegal.
Yeah, it's all about the money. It's all about people that shouldn't have these jobs, having these six-figure jobs. And, you know, they need more help. They need more of our money. They're sucking us dry. How much more can they take from us, and how are we even able to exist? I mean, you can't just keep taking all the value out of a community. And give
they just keep spending it. You know, they would rather have had my grandson in a group home, okay, a children's home, paying them $300 a day for each kid that's there, at an amount of like 25 kids that were all there from Nashua, instead of putting the kids with their grandparents who don't want their stinking money. You know what I mean? They would rather just waste. Yeah. When they have it in for you, they have it in for you, period. The minute you start to fight back, it's all over. You never get the kids, never.
Yeah, the retaliation, we need grand juries, we need to do something. I'm going to post this on Live Leak. I'm also going to probably do an op-ed story, and so look for it. I'll send you a link. But
okay,
we could possibly do a follow-up. But let's get the information out. And I think whether, divorce cases, child custody, anybody that goes through the system, even small claims, you get screwed. Yeah.
They all get screwed.
We need a system that isn't rigged. Even with police officers and DCF, we pay these people, and they work for us, and they should work in our best interest.
Right.
Not the corporations, not these organized criminals, not for each other. They work for us, and they should understand that. And until we have grand juries and a way to say you're fired, they'll keep doing what they're doing.
That's exactly what we need. On my blog, too, I have a petition on there. I want an audit of New Hampshire DCYF. If anyone wants to read it, it's there. It's kind of big, but it really needs to be done. They all need to be audited. In New Hampshire DCYF, they did the statewide assessment, and Nashua came out with the lowest numbers of all of them. For relative placement alone, it was 33%. Now, the federal government isn't supposed to be giving them money unless they're in the 95 percentile, and they're not. And how do they keep getting this money?
Well, it's all states. I mean,
Right. It's happening in all states. Why do they keep giving them the money when New Hampshire's been in non-compliance for almost 20 years? Almost 20 years, and they're still getting federal funding.
Well,
and it's our tax dollars.
Yeah, they don't follow the rules, but we have to follow the rules. And even if the rules aren't in the books, they make up as they go, and they can punish us for just about anything, and anything goes with them. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'll post this, and maybe we'll do a follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And anything you want posted on my blog, just email me.
That I will.
Okay? Thank you. It was nice talking to you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.